The sharp, icy bite of a winter morning typically filled our home with the chaotic symphony of holiday joy. This time, it was the chilling silence that screamed betrayal. At 27 years old, I, Eleanor Vance, never anticipated waking up to a deserted dwelling on the morning of a festive holiday. The quietude was the initial shock. No aroma of freshly brewed coffee, no cheerful seasonal melodies, no familiar voices, just an eerie stillness pervading the space where familial vibrancy typically reigned. Remnants of breakfast dishes lay abandoned in the sink, vehicles were absent from the driveway, and not a solitary message offered an explanation. Our customary annual holiday excursion, involving 17 individuals and 4 automobiles, had apparently commenced without a single person recalling my presence, or so they contended. If you've ever experienced the profound feeling of being unseen by those who ought to recognize you best, please share your location and consider subscribing for what unfolded next. Growing up within the Vance family meant constant company, whether desired or not, a perpetual open-door policy that blurred the lines between relatives and roommates. My parents, Clara and Arthur, had 3 offspring: my elder sister Beatrice, myself in the middle, and my younger brother Leo. But then there were the aunts, uncles, and cousins who, given their frequent presence and spontaneous sleepovers, might as well have shared our residence. Being the middle child precisely mirrored every stereotype one might have heard, only amplified by the sheer volume of our extended clan. Beatrice was the celebrated progeny, a top academic performer, a talented artist, flawless in every respect, always at the center of attention, her every achievement met with thunderous applause and proud parental boasts. Leo was the youngest, charismatic, effortlessly charming, and utterly pampered, his every whim indulged, his youthful antics forgiven with a chuckle. And I was simply there, the dependable one, the invisible glue holding our boisterous family together. I was the individual who not only remembered every birthday, complete with their preferred cake flavor and specific gift request, but also orchestrated elaborate gatherings, managed the chaotic holiday gift exchange, and maintained harmony when family tensions flared into their inevitable squabbles, often mediating disputes that no one else dared to touch. I was the quiet anchor, always ready to lend an ear or a helping hand, yet rarely acknowledged for it. Our holiday trips had been a cherished custom for a decade, a yearly pilgrimage that began as a modest getaway with just our immediate family to a cozy lakeside cabin. Over the years, it had blossomed into an extensive family extravaganza, incorporating aunts, uncles, cousins, and even a few close family associates who, by dint of their consistent presence, had earned an honorary Vance surname. The previous year, we were 16. This year, the count was to be 17 with the inclusion of my sister's fiancé. I consistently served as the family's unofficial, unpaid, and often unappreciated helpful assistant. Need someone to research locations, meticulously cross-referencing reviews and amenities? Ask Eleanor. Require accommodation bookings, negotiating group rates, and managing complex reservation changes? Eleanor will manage it flawlessly. Need an individual to remember everyone's dietary restrictions: Aunt Helen's gluten intolerance, Uncle George's shellfish allergy, Leo's inexplicable aversion to anything green, medication schedules, Grandma's evening pills, Cousin Timmy's ADHD medication, entertainment preferences, the cousin's need for constant Wi-Fi, the adult's love for board games, Grandpa's insistence on a quiet reading nook, and even the nuanced interpersonal dynamics to avoid seating Aunt Carol and Aunt Susan next to each other. That's Eleanor's domain. I even created detailed packing lists tailored to each family member based on the climate and activities, and prepared emergency kits for the road trip. Little things, but they always made the trips run smoothly. Despite often being overlooked, a faint whisper in the background of their vibrant lives. I treasured these excursions. Last year, in the Blue Ridge Peaks, we rented adjacent cabins, a sprawling setup that allowed for both communal gathering and individual respite. Aunt Helen and I spent an entire evening baking intricate holiday treats, her ancient family recipes coming alive in our hands, while Uncle George, with his booming laugh, taught the younger cousins complex card games like poker and blackjack, slyly slipping them a few quarters to raise the stakes. My mother actually complimented my holiday decorations, a rare, fleeting moment of genuine recognition, admitting my eye for festive details transformed our cabin into a winter wonderland. My father, in an unprecedented gesture, sought my opinion on his intricate retirement strategies, seemingly valuing my logical approach and financial acumen. For once, I felt genuinely acknowledged, a small but significant warmth spreading through my chest. However, family dynamics shift like sand beneath the tide, and the past 6 months introduced significant alterations that quickly extinguished that fleeting warmth. Beatrice became engaged to Oliver, a financial analyst from a well-to-do family with influential connections in the city's most elite circles. Their engagement celebration was an opulent affair held at a country club where the valet parking cost more than my weekly groceries. My mother shed joyous tears for an entire evening, proclaiming Beatrice had found her prince, and my father boisterously boasted to every guest about his brilliant, successful daughter's perfect match. Leo had been accepted into Sterling University, his highly aspirational institution with a reputation for producing future leaders, and suddenly my parents transformed into Sterling University enthusiasts, sporting university attire, caps, hoodies, even a Sterling University coffee mug, and discussing Leo's future graduation and inevitable success, even though he hadn't yet commenced classes. Meanwhile, my promotion to senior account manager at the marketing firm where I had dedicated 5 years of diligent work and countless late nights barely elicited a "that's nice" from my mother. My father inquired if it came with a salary increase, but appeared visibly disappointed when I clarified that a substantial raise would follow my 6-month review, as if my current achievement was insufficient. New additions to our extended family had also created shifting alliances, further marginalizing my position. Cousin Sophie had married Felix, a charismatic, rugged outdoorsman who swiftly became my uncle's new fishing companion, spending weekends on the lake and evenings swapping elaborate tales of their catches. Aunt Deborah had a new partner, Mark, an antique car enthusiast who immediately connected with my father over their shared fondness for vintage automobiles, spending hours tinkering in the garage and discussing rare parts. Everyone seemed to be pairing off or forging novel, exclusive connections, while I remained the family's versatile player, useful, yet undeniably not indispensable. My role was to facilitate their enjoyment, not to be a part of it. Still, I was genuinely enthusiastic about this year's trip. I had been promoted, accumulated vacation days, and was eager to share my success with my family. Perhaps this would be the year they would perceive me as more than just the helpful middle child, the dependable background fixture. This year's destination was my suggestion, a magnificent resort nestled deep in the Rocky Peaks region, a place I had dreamed of visiting for years. I located it after weeks of meticulous research, secured the booking months in advance, and, as was customary, charged the entire $15,500 cost to my credit card, with promises from everyone to reimburse me upon arrival at the destination. The resort featured private cabins encircling a main lodge, an Olympic-sized ice skating rink, extensive ski trails for all skill levels, and a renowned restaurant acclaimed for its holiday dinner. We held 3 exhaustive family meetings concerning the trip, each one lasting hours, where I presented detailed activity schedules, accommodation alternatives, and intricate transportation logistics. Everyone appeared wildly enthusiastic, especially about the exhilarating snowmobiling and thrilling sledding options I had researched. We decided to drive rather than fly, transforming it into a full-blown road trip adventure, a logistical nightmare I willingly embraced. For vehicles would undertake the 20-hour journey, meticulously distributing family members in a manner that would mitigate the inevitable disagreements and personality clashes. I managed most of the logistics. I created personalized packing lists tailored to each family member's individual needs and preferences, researched and reserved every activity from beginner ski lessons to guided snowshoeing tours, arranged the holiday gift exchange down to the last detail, and even prepared elaborate card games and curated playlists for the long drive. The reservation was under my name, paid with my credit card. I had orchestrated everything to ensure this would be our finest holiday trip yet, a truly unforgettable experience for everyone. Looking back, the warning signs were discernible. I simply chose not to acknowledge them, dismissing them as typical family quirks or holiday chaos. Conversations would cease abruptly upon my entry into rooms, hushed whispers giving way to forced cheerfulness. Text messages regarding trip details, sent directly to me, would remain unanswered for hours, sometimes days, despite others in the group chat getting immediate replies. Smaller family gatherings, impromptu barbecues, movie nights, even a pre-holiday planning dinner at a restaurant occurred without my invitation, only for me to discover them later through social media posts. 2 weeks before the trip, I overheard my mother and sister whispering conspiratorially in the kitchen, their voices low and urgent. When I entered, Beatrice swiftly changed the topic to holiday cookies, her voice unnaturally bright. When I inquired what they were discussing, my mother merely smiled, a tight, unconvincing smile, and said, "Holiday surprises, dear. Nothing for you to worry about." A few days later, my mother requested to borrow my credit card as a backup for the trip, claiming hers had been misplaced. When I asked why, she became flustered, stammering, "In case we need to make changes to the reservation, just as a precaution." Since the reservation was already in my name and on my card, the request made absolutely no logical sense, but I dismissed it as her usual pre-trip anxiety. The night before departure, everyone was expected to be ready by 7 in the morning. I stayed awake until nearly 2, organizing last-minute details, meticulously wrapping a few final gifts, and ensuring everything was impeccably perfect for the grand departure. I set my alarm for 5:30, planning to shower, finish packing my toiletries, and then assist with loading the vehicles, as was my custom. When I awoke, sunlight streamed through my window blinds, bright and high in the sky, sunlight. My heart sank as I grabbed my phone. 9:15 a.m. How had I slept through my alarm? I sprang from bed, already calling out breathless apologies as I hurried toward the hallway. The house was silent, not the tranquil silence of early morning before the world awoke, but the hollow silence of emptiness, the unnerving quiet that descends after everyone has gone. I called out again, louder this time, my voice echoing back to me in the unnerving stillness. "Mom? Dad? Is anyone still here?" I checked my parents' room first. Bed made, nothing on the nightstands, closet door open with visible gaps where luggage had been. Beatrice's room next. Same situation, only neater, as if she'd meticulously erased her presence. Leo's room looked as though a tornado had struck it, a familiar chaotic mess, but his holiday backpack and gaming console were gone. All the undeniable signs of the whirlwind that was my brother preparing for a trip. With each empty room, my chest tightened a little more, a cold dread seeping in. I ran downstairs, checking the living room, dining room, kitchen. Holiday decorations still twinkled mockingly, festive yet cruelly out of place in the desolate silence. In the kitchen, Breakfast dishes were piled in the sink. They had eaten before leaving, together, a full meal, without even considering waking me. I rushed to the front door and threw it open. The driveway, where 4 vehicles should have been parked, brimming with luggage and family, was utterly empty except for my own solitary sedan. They were gone. All of them. I stood barefoot on the cold porch, the crisp December air biting at my skin, my breath forming clouds as the crushing reality sank in. They had left me behind. My hands trembled violently as I walked back inside, retrieving my phone from my bedroom. I scrolled through my notifications. Nothing from my family, not a single missed call, no texts inquiring about my whereabouts or well-being. I dialed my mother's mobile phone, my fingers shaking as I hit call. It rang 4 times before she answered, her voice bright and cheerful, almost annoyingly so. "Eleanor, good morning, sweetheart. Did you just wake up?" The background noise was unmistakable. Cheerful holiday music, multiple conversations overlapping, raucous laughter. They were well on their way, probably hours into the drive already, completely immersed in their joyous bubble. "You left without me," I said, my voice smaller and more fragile than I intended, barely a whisper. A beat of silence.
"What?"
"No, we aren't. You in the van with your cousins?" My throat tightened, a sudden burning sensation behind my eyes.
"No, Mom."
"I'm at home, alone. I overslept, and you all left without me." Another pause, longer this time, filled only with the faint background hum of their celebratory road trip. I heard her muffled voice as she presumably covered the phone to speak to someone else, her tone low and urgent. When she returned, her tone had changed, less cheerful, more concerned, but something about it rang false, a forced note of regret. "Oh, Eleanor, there must have been a miscommunication. We all thought you were in Sophie's van with the cousins." "I'm so sorry, sweetie." From somewhere in the background, distinct despite the muffled sound, I heard my father's gruff voice tell her, "We'll figure something out." "Did anyone check if I was in the van?" I asked, fighting desperately to keep my voice steady, to prevent it from cracking. "Did anyone look for me before you left?" "Well, it was hectic. You know how mornings like this are with so many people. Everyone was rushing around, trying to get on the road. I guess we just assumed." "You assumed?" I repeated flatly, the word laced with incredulity and simmering anger. 17 people, and not one of you noticed I wasn't there? Not during breakfast, not during loading the cars, not during the head count I specifically suggested we do before leaving. "Eleanor, don't be like that. It was an honest mistake. We'll figure something out. Maybe you can catch a flight and meet us there. I have to go now. The reception is getting spotty. I'll call you back in a bit, okay?" The call ended abruptly before I could respond, leaving me holding a dead phone. I stood in my pajamas in the middle of the kitchen, phone still in hand, staring at nothing, a blank wall mirroring the emptiness I felt inside. They'd left without me, and from the sound of it, they'd been on the road for hours before I even woke up. I tried to be rational. Maybe it was an honest mistake. Mornings like that are chaotic. Maybe everyone really did think I was in one of the other vehicles. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table and opened my laptop, searching for flights to the Rocky Peaks region. The prices for last-minute holiday travel made me wince, each ticket costing more than a month's rent. But if this was truly a misunderstanding, I could make it work, somehow. While frantically searching for flights, a glimmer of hope prompted me to call my Aunt Louise, who had opted out of the trip this year due to a hip replacement surgery. "Aunt Louise, it's Eleanor. Sorry to bother you, but something strange happened." I explained the situation, my voice trembling slightly, hoping for sympathy or at least surprise, a shared outrage. Instead, there was an uncomfortable, prolonged pause. Oh, sweetheart, she finally said, her voice gentle but undeniably awkward, as if she were choosing her words very carefully. I'm sure it was just confusion in all the excitement this morning. Did you talk to your mother this morning or Beatrice? Another pause, filled with the unspoken. Sophie called to say they were on the road. She mentioned everyone was having a good time. Did she mention me at all? I pressed, my heart sinking further. Not specifically, no. Aunt Louise, do you know something you're not telling me? Her sigh was heavy, laden with reluctance. Eleanor, I don't want to get in the middle of family matters. You know how delicate things can be. I'm sure whatever happened, it's all a misunderstanding. Why don't you call your mother again? The conversation left me with a leaden, sinking feeling, confirming my worst suspicions she knew. I opened my social media apps, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach, and saw Beatrice had already posted a flurry of photos from the road trip, group selfies in the crammed car, everyone laughing, a breakfast stop at a bustling diner, plates piled high with pancakes, everyone smiling, laughing, enjoying the beginning of our family holiday trip without me. I scrolled through the comments. Cousin Sophie, best holiday trip ever, starting off right. So much fun already. Leo, road trip vibes. Epic start to the Vakui. Mom, so blessed to have almost everyone together. The phrase almost everyone struck me like a physical slap across the face. She knew I wasn't there. It wasn't a mistake. It was a conscious omission. I switched to another social media platform and saw similar posts from other family members, a public declaration of my absence. Then I noticed something else. Several comments referenced messages from a group chat I wasn't part of. Just like we planned. Operation Road Trip is a go. One comment read. Another said, so glad we listened to B. I searched my phone frantically for any group chat about the trip, but found nothing. They had created a separate conversation without me, a secret channel for their plans. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing, undeniable picture, but I still couldn't bring myself to believe what it suggested. Couldn't wrap my head around the depth of such a betrayal. I spent the next 2 hours alternating between checking exorbitant last-minute flights, futilely calling family members who didn't answer their phones, and fighting back tears of confusion, hurt, and burgeoning anger. My mother hadn't called back as promised, a clear sign of her flimsy excuse. Then my phone chimed with a text from Beatrice, her name flashing accusingly on the screen. I opened it to find a screenshot of a conversation. The screenshot showed several messages, but one was highlighted, a casual, cruel line that pierced me to the core. She's really not here. OMG, our plan worked. Mom kept asking if we should wait, but I told her she was probably still sleeping. Got to admit, I feel a little bad, but after last year's drama, we deserve a peaceful holiday. Below the screenshot, Beatrice had typed, with feigned casualness, "Oops, wrong person. Ignore that." I stared at the message, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. She's not here. They didn't even see me as a person, just an obstacle, a problem to be solved. And our plan worked, left no room for misinterpretation. This wasn't an accident. They had planned to leave without me. The drama they referred to from last holiday, that was when I'd finally stood up for myself after Cousin Greg made yet another crude joke about me being perpetually single, suggesting I bring a cardboard cutout as a date. I'd calmly asked him to stop, pointing out that his comments were hurtful and unwelcome. That was it. No yelling, no scene, just a simple request for basic respect. But apparently, that was too much drama for my family to handle. I replied with just 2 words, "Happy holidays." Then I put my phone down and let the tears I'd been fighting finally fall, hot and bitter against my cheeks. 2 hours passed while I sat in stunned silence, the kitchen around me fading into a blur. Beatrice's screenshot burned into my memory, the words searing themselves into my brain. She's really not here. OMG, our plan worked. The words replayed on a loop, each repetition a fresh wound, twisting deeper into my soul. My family hadn't forgotten me. They had actively, deliberately, cruelly excluded me. My phone had been buzzing intermittently with frantic messages from Beatrice. Eleanor, it's not what it looks like. Please call me so I can explain. That message wasn't about you, it was about Leo. You're taking this the wrong way. I ignored them all. My focus was elsewhere. Instead, with a grim determination, I opened my laptop and logged into our family's shared cloud storage. We used it for photos and documents, but also for backing up conversations from various devices, a habit my father had insisted on for family archiving. Beatrice was particularly careless about this, always selecting backup everything whenever prompted, without considering what sensitive personal communications might be included. In the folder with her name, I found backup files of her text messages from the past month. I hesitated only briefly, my finger hovering over the mouse, before opening them. What I found confirmed my worst fears, and then some. A chilling series of conversations between Beatrice and various family members about the Eleanor situation. Plans to create a separate group chat without me. Discussions about how to ensure I wouldn't be included on the trip. From Beatrice to Mom, 3 weeks ago, casual yet chilling. Do we really have to bring Eleanor? Last year she ruined Christmas with all her drama. Mom's reply, a hesitant response. She did book everything, and it's on her credit card. Beatrice, with a triumphant tone. So we let her book it and then figure out a way to leave without her? Win-win. Another conversation, this time with Leo, equally damning. Mom's worried about leaving Eleanor behind. Leo's response, flippant and dismissive. Just leave before she wakes up. She sleeps like the dead, anyway. By the time she realizes we're gone, we'll be halfway to the Rocky Peaks region. The most hurtful was a group text where they had actually voted on whether to include me. The final tally displayed clearly 3 for bringing me, 12 against, with 2 abstentions. My own parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, had voted against me. My mother had initially defended me, a brief flicker of loyalty. She is family, and she did arrange everything. But she'd quickly given in to the group pressure, her voice wavering in the text. I suppose you're right. It would be more relaxing without having to manage her feelings all the time. Manage my feelings? I whispered to the empty room, the words burning on my tongue. The drama they referred to from last holiday, that was when I'd finally stood up for myself after Cousin Greg made yet another joke about me being perpetually single. I'd calmly asked him to stop, pointing out that his comments were hurtful and out of line. That was it. No yelling, no scene, just a simple, dignified request for respect. But apparently, that was too much drama for my family to handle, an inconvenience to their carefully constructed illusion of peace. As I dug deeper, years of injustice surfaced in my memory, a floodgate of forgotten hurts, now painfully clear. The time I gave up my spacious bedroom for a week when distant relatives visited, sleeping uncomfortably on the lumpy couch in the living room while Beatrice flatly refused to share her even larger room. This past summer, I worked 2 exhausting jobs, picking up extra shifts and freelance gigs to help pay for family expenses when Dad was between positions, only to have my parents spend the money I contributed on a brand new, top-of-the-line car for Leo when he got his license, complete with all the latest features. The countless times my achievements, my promotions, my hard work were minimized or entirely overlooked while my siblings were celebrated with fanfares and expensive gifts. I remembered how last holiday I'd offered to help Mom in the kitchen, meticulously chopping vegetables, and she'd snapped at me that I was doing it wrong. My technique all off, only to praise Beatrice's identical technique minutes later as so efficient. How Dad had interrupted me mid-sentence during the holiday gift exchange, dismissing my carefully chosen words to point out something trivial Leo was doing across the room. How Aunt Helen had accidentally left me out of the family photo, and no one had noticed until I mentioned it, and then their apologies were quick, almost perfunctory, as if my absence was a minor detail. I'd always been the family's scapegoat, the convenient target, the reliable background character, but until now, I'd never realized how deliberate and widespread it was. I'd given them the benefit of the doubt, made endless excuses for their often cruel behavior, rationalized that families are complicated and no one is perfect, that it was just the way we are. I thought about the financial sacrifices I'd made for them. Not small favors, but significant contributions that impacted my own future. When my parents struggled with mortgage payments 3 years ago, facing potential foreclosure, I'd given them $8,000 from my carefully accumulated savings, money I'd been putting aside diligently for a down payment on my own place, a dream I had cherished. That loan was never repaid, quietly forgotten as soon as their financial crisis passed. When Leo needed a top-of-the-line laptop for school, essential for his studies, I bought it, though I was still paying off my own student loans. When Beatrice's car needed expensive repairs after a minor accident, I covered them without a second thought. And this trip, the $15,500 booking that I had placed on my credit card, a sum that represented months of my hard-earned income. Every year I handled the booking, and every year the family promised to reimburse me their shares by the holiday. Sometimes they did, partially, a trickle of funds. More often, excuses were made about tight budgets and promises of paying me back soon that never materialized, fading into the background like forgotten dreams. I tried calling different family members, a desperate last attempt at understanding. My father's phone went straight to voicemail. Leo texted that he was in the middle of something super important and would call later, a call that never came. Aunt Helen read my message, the blue check marks confirming she'd seen it, but didn't respond. Uncle George's phone rang, and rang with no answer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Cousin Sophie picked up. "Eleanor, hey, what's up?" she asked, her voice tinged with an unusual hesitation. "Sophie, I need you to be honest with me. Did everyone intentionally leave without me this morning?" A long, uncomfortable pause, punctuated only by the distant hum of the phone line. I don't know what you're talking about," she finally mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please don't lie to me. Not you too." She sighed heavily, a sound of defeat. "Look, Eleanor, it wasn't my idea, okay? Beatrice and Leo organized the whole thing. They said you're always complaining and making everything difficult, always so sensitive. They convinced everyone it would be more fun, more relaxed, without you there. And you went along with it? You just let them." My voice was raw with pain. What was I supposed to do? It was majority rule, Eleanor. I didn't want to be excluded too. You could have stood up for me. You could have at least warned me. And risk being ostracized too? I'm sorry, Eleanor. That's just how family dynamics work sometimes. I hung up without saying goodbye, the line going dead in my hand. Then I went to my childhood bedroom, the room that was supposed to be my sanctuary, closed the door, and broke down completely. Years of being overlooked, dismissed, taken for granted, and now utterly betrayed, crashed over me like a tidal wave. I curled up on my bed, clutching a pillow, and sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes burned, until there were no more tears left to cry. As the brutal winter afternoon darkened into evening, I cycled through the classic stages of grief: shock, denial, and bargaining. Maybe if I apologized for whatever perceived wrongs I'd committed, they'd welcome me back. Maybe if I offered to stay in a separate cabin and give them space, they'd let me come. Maybe if I tried harder to be what they wanted, to shed my drama, they'd finally accept me.
Truly.
But as night fell, those desperate thoughts gave way to something new, something powerful. Anger. White hot, clarifying anger that burned away the fog of self-doubt and people-pleasing I'd lived in for so long. After hours of crying, after the initial storm of emotion, I felt strangely calm. Empty, yes, but also remarkably clear-headed. I called Sophie back. "I need the complete truth," I said when she answered, my voice steady, devoid of the earlier tremor. No sugarcoating, no protecting anyone's feelings. What exactly did they say about me? Every word. Sophie hesitated, then sighed again, a sound of resignation. "They said you're too sensitive, that you make everything about yourself, that you monopolize the conversation, that you're controlling about the trip details, always making detailed itineraries and reminders, and it's exhausting. Beatrice specifically said holidays would be more relaxing without you there, constantly questioning everything and getting your feelings hurt over trivial things." And my parents? What did they say, Sophie? "Your mom tried to defend you at first, saying you were just trying to be helpful, but Beatrice kept bringing up last holiday, calling it the incident, making it sound like you caused a huge scene. Eventually your mom agreed it might be easier without you. Your dad just went along with whatever your mom decided, as usual." And the plan was what, exactly? Step by step. To leave before you woke up. To tell you it was a mistake if you called. To claim they thought you were in another car. By the time you figured it out, we'd be too far away for you to join us, and you'd just have to accept it. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, a final nail in the coffin of my illusions, but I remained eerily calm. "Thank you for being honest, Sophie."
Eleanor, I'm truly sorry.
I should have said something, I know. "Yes, you should have," I replied, then ended the call, the silence more comforting than her half-hearted apology. I sat on the edge of my bed, letting the full, crushing weight of my family's betrayal sink in, not just today, but years of it, decades. Years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who gave and gave while receiving so little in return. Years of telling myself it was normal, that family relationships are complicated, that love isn't always expressed in obvious ways, that their dismissiveness was just their way. But this wasn't love. This was exploitation. This was emotional abuse. This was a family that had decided I was worth less than the others, that my feelings didn't matter, that I could be discarded when inconvenient. "Enough," I whispered to my empty room, the word a quiet vow. I moved to my desk and opened my laptop again, my fingers moving with a newfound decisiveness. I navigated to the Summit Haven Retreats website and logged into my account. There it was, the reservation in my name, glowing on the screen, $15,500 for the premium holiday package, 6 luxurious cabins surrounding a central lodge, all activities included, a special holiday dinner and events, the works. I'd been saving diligently for this trip all year, making extra payments on my credit card to accommodate the large sum. The family was supposed to reimburse me their shares when we exchanged gifts on holiday eve, as was our tradition, but I now knew that was a lie. Another dive into Beatrice's backed-up messages revealed they had no intention of doing so. "Eleanor won't cancel the reservation, even if she finds out," Leo had written, displaying a casual cruelty. "She cares too much about what everyone thinks. She'll probably book a flight out and pretend everything's fine, and we still get our free holiday vacation." Beatrice had replied, adding a laughing emoji, confirming their shared, cynical belief. I stared at those messages for a long time, the cold calculation of their plan chilling me to the bone. Then I picked up my phone and texted Beatrice a single reply to her earlier frantic messages. Happy holidays. Let them think everything was fine. Let them think I was hurt but accepting it. Let them think I was predictable, reliable Eleanor, who would never rock the boat. I sat at my desk and made a list, my pen scratching furiously on the paper. Every time I'd covered expenses for family members, every loan never repaid, every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd been overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted. The list ran to 3 pages, single-spaced, a testament to years of silent suffering. Then I made a second list. Things I wanted:
Respect.
appreciation, reciprocity, honesty, the simple dignity of being treated as a full and equal member of the family, not a means to an end. I called my therapist, Dr. Anya Sharma, whom I'd been seeing for the past year to work on my people-pleasing tendencies and boundary issues, as she called them. She answered despite it being after hours on holiday eve, her voice calm and compassionate. Eleanor, what's happened? I explained the situation, every detail, my voice surprisingly steady, even as I recounted the most painful parts. When I finished, there was a moment of profound silence on the line. What you're describing is a profound betrayal, Eleanor, she finally said, her voice gentle yet firm. Your reaction is not only justified, it's healthy. The anger you're feeling is appropriate. The question is, what do you want to do with it? How do you want to move forward? I want to stop being a doormat. I want consequences for their actions. I want them to understand they can't treat me this way anymore. Those are all valid desires, Eleanor. What specific actions are you considering? I told her my plan, the 2-part response I was formulating, outlining each step. She listened without interruption, her silence a powerful affirmation. Will these actions move you toward healing or deeper into hurt? She asked when I finished, her question cutting through the haze of anger. Both. Maybe initially more hurt as I confront the reality, but ultimately healing because I'll finally be standing up for myself for the first time. Then I support you. Just remember, you're making these choices for yourself, for your own well-being and self-respect, not primarily to punish them. The goal isn't revenge, it's self-respect and reclaiming your agency. After we hung up, I felt a deep sense of validation. My reaction wasn't excessive, my anger wasn't unwarranted, and my plan wasn't unreasonable given the circumstances. I opened the Summit Haven Retreats website again, my resolve solidified, and clicked Contact Us. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number. Summit Haven Retreat, this is Brenda speaking. How can I assist you? Her voice was warm and professional. Hi Brenda, my name is Eleanor Vance. I have a reservation for 6 cabins beginning tomorrow, the 25th of December. Yes, Miss Vance, I have your reservation here. The premium holiday package for 17 guests. Is there something I can help you with? I need to cancel the entire reservation, I stated, my voice clear and unwavering. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. May I ask the reason for cancellation? We might be able to accommodate changes instead. I hesitated only briefly, then decided on radical honesty. The reservation was for a family trip, but there's been a change of plans. The family decided to exclude me after I'd already paid for everything.
A pause.
I see. Miss Vance, I'm very sorry to hear that. That sounds incredibly difficult. Her voice had softened with genuine, unfeigned sympathy. Let me check our cancellation policy for your booking. I heard keyboard clicks in the background, a murmur of a conversation. Normally, our holiday packages are non-refundable this close to the date, especially during peak season, but given the circumstances and your long-standing record as a booker, let me speak with my manager. I was placed on hold for several minutes, the holiday music on the line oddly soothing. When Brenda returned, her voice was warm and empathetic. "Miss Vance, my manager has approved a full refund to your credit card. The funds should be returned within 3 to 5 business days." "Thank you," I said, relief flooding through me, a massive weight lifting from my shoulders. That was $15,500 I couldn't afford to lose. "There's one more thing," Brenda continued. "Your family is still planning to arrive tomorrow, correct? For check-in." "Yes, as far as I know, they're en route. Would you like us to let them know the reservation has been canceled when they arrive, or would you prefer to inform them yourself?" I considered this a mischievous spark in my chest. Actually, if it's not too much trouble, I'd prefer if they found out when they arrive, as a surprise. Another pause, and I imagined Brenda suppressing a smile. "I understand perfectly, Miss Vance. We can certainly handle that discreetly. We will simply inform them that there is no reservation under their name or yours." "Thank you, Brenda. You've been very kind and incredibly helpful." "You're welcome, Miss Vance. And if I may say so, I hope you find a way to enjoy your holiday despite these difficult circumstances." After hanging up, I felt a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying lift from my shoulders. Step 1 complete. Now, for step 2. I set my alarm for 6:30 the next morning, holiday morning itself, then began gathering what I would need: documents proving property ownership, financial records, copies of keys to the house, my passport, and a few personal mementos I couldn't bear to lose: old photo albums, my grandmother's locket. As I worked, a new sense of purpose driving me, I booked a solo vacation to Santorini, Greece, departing the following evening. I'd always wanted to go, but had never prioritized my own travel dreams over family obligations, always putting their needs first. The delicious irony wasn't lost on me that I'd be spending about the same amount on my solo dream trip as I'd been prepared to lose on the family trip I'd been excluded from. I wrote a detailed, factual letter to my family, explaining exactly why I was taking these actions, careful to focus on facts and specific instances rather than emotions, to make it irrefutable. I set up an automatic email to be sent to all of them once I was safely on my flight to Santorini. Then I made 2 final calls, one to a locksmith who, bless his heart, charged extra for holiday service but guaranteed immediate availability, and one to a moving company that advertised anytime, anywhere availability, also at premium holiday rates, of course. Both confirmed they could meet my needs. Money well spent, in my opinion, an investment in my own future. As I finally went to bed in the early hours of holiday morning, I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. Tomorrow would be difficult, but necessary. And for the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself over everyone else's expectations and demands. My alarm buzzed at 6:30 sharp on holiday morning. I'd slept surprisingly well, deep and undisturbed, waking with purpose and clarity rather than the heavy fog of sadness from the day before. I showered, dressed in comfortable, practical clothes, and ate a quick, solitary breakfast. Then I got to work. The locksmith arrived at 7:30, right on schedule. An older man named Walter, with kind eyes and a grizzled beard, who didn't ask questions beyond what was necessary for the job. I explained that I needed all the locks changed on the house, including the front door, back door, side entrance, and garage, immediately. He nodded and got to work, the metallic sound of his tools echoing through the quiet house. "Family issues?" he asked about halfway through, his tone conversational rather than judgmental, a knowing look in his eye. "You could say that," I replied, a small, wry smile touching my lips. He nodded again. "Holidays bring out the best and worst in families. Been married 42 years. And my wife's family still drives me to change the locks every now and then." He winked, and I found myself genuinely smiling for the first time in what felt like days. By 9 o'clock, Walter was done. He handed me the new, shiny keys, a complete set, and wished me happy holidays. I thanked him sincerely and added a generous tip to his already substantial holiday rate. He had given me back a sense of security. The moving company arrived at 9:30. Two strong young men named Ethan and Liam, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else on holiday morning but remained professionally cheerful despite their obvious holiday discomfort. I directed them to help me move certain items from the house to the garage, which had a separate, secure entrance. My parents' clothing, personal items, and some non-essential furniture, Leo's elaborate gaming setup and extensive collection of collectibles, Beatrice's vast beauty collection, and numerous designer clothes and accessories. We're doing some extensive renovations, I explained when Liam raised an eyebrow at the unusual task of moving personal belongings to a garage on Christmas Day. The family's away for the holiday, and I want to surprise them with the progress when they return. They worked efficiently, handling everything with surprising care, and by 11 o'clock, the garage was neatly stacked with labeled boxes and furniture items, a makeshift storage unit. I placed a large, sealed envelope on top of a prominent box containing my detailed letter and the new house keys. Then I locked the garage with its separate key, which I would leave in a hidden spot only the family knew about, a small garden gnome they'd always joked about. Inside the house, I set up the small, discreet security cameras I'd ordered with express delivery earlier in the week. One covering the front door, one for the back, and one in the main living area, all connected to an app on my phone that would allow me to monitor the house remotely, providing crucial evidence if needed. Next came the financial untangling, the arduous process of separating my finances from the family's entangled web. I logged into our shared family account and transferred my portion, the funds I had contributed for shared expenses, to my personal, newly opened private account. I meticulously removed my credit card information from all family subscription services they had been freely using, streaming services, magazine subscriptions, even a premium coffee delivery service. I changed passwords on accounts that were technically mine, but that the family had been using freely, often without asking. By early afternoon, my suitcase was packed for Santorini, my passport and essential documents were secured, the house was physically secured, and everything was in place for the family's eventual, rude awakening. I took one last walk through the home I had shared with my parents for most of my adult life. Not out of financial necessity, as many assume when adult children live at home, but out of a misplaced sense of duty and connection, a desire to be near them. The house itself had been left to me by my eccentric but loving grandmother 5 years ago, much to everyone's surprise, including mine. She'd always had a soft spot for me, perhaps recognizing a kindred spirit in the family overlooker, the quiet observer. I'd invited my parents to continue living there, never charging them rent despite taking on the substantial mortgage payments and all the upkeep myself, another fact conveniently forgotten when family finances were discussed. As I stood in the entryway, the new, heavy keys in my hand, my phone began buzzing relentlessly with incoming calls and texts. They'd arrived at the resort and discovered the canceled reservation, right on schedule. I didn't answer immediately, taking my time to lock up and load my suitcase into my car, savoring the moment. Then I sat in the driveway, the engine still off, and began reading through the cascade of messages, a chilling chronicle of their rising panic. Mom, Eleanor, there's been some mistake with the reservation. Please call me immediately. They say nothing is booked. Dad, Eleanor, your mother's very upset. Fix whatever you did with the resort booking right now. This is unacceptable. Beatrice, what did you do? They said you canceled everything. Are you insane? Call me now. We're stranded. Leo, WTF Eleanor, there's nowhere to stay and everything's booked. This isn't funny. Pick up your phone. Aunt Helen. Eleanor, we're all standing in the resort lobby with nowhere to go. Please call someone. This is a nightmare. And so on. Message after message of increasing panic, confusion, and raw anger. No acknowledgement of what they'd done, just furious expectations that Eleanor, would magically solve the problem I had supposedly created. I scrolled through them all, a faint, grim smile playing on my lips. Then, choosing my words carefully, I typed a single reply to the family group text, the one I hadn't been included in until this emergency, now a storm of their complaints. I know you plan to leave without me. I know you never intended to reimburse me for the trip. I've canceled the reservation and received a full refund. Enjoy your holiday. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone rang and rang with incoming calls, which I declined one after another, letting them go to voicemail, reveling in the silence of my car. The text messages flew in faster than I could read them, a torrent of accusations and outrage. Mom, Eleanor, you're completely overreacting. It wasn't like that at all. How could you do this? Dad, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Young lady, you are ruining Christmas for everyone. Beatrice, I can't believe you'd ruin Christmas for everyone over a stupid misunderstanding. You are so selfish. Aunt Deborah, we're stranded in the Rocky Peaks region with nowhere to stay. How could you be so selfish and spiteful, Eleanor? I let them rant, watching the messages accumulate without responding further, a silent observer to their unfolding chaos. Let them feel a fraction of the helplessness and exclusion I'd felt. Let them understand that actions have consequences, that I was not their ever-present safety net. After about 20 minutes, the tone began to shift, desperation creeping in. Mom, Eleanor, please. We're sorry if you felt excluded. We can talk about this. Just please tell us what to do. Dad, your mother's crying, Eleanor. At least tell us what you expect us to do now. We need a plan. Beatrice. Okay, fine. We shouldn't have left without you. It was a dumb idea. But this is extreme. Where are we supposed to go? What about everyone else? I texted back one more time, my final message for the immediate future. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're all so resourceful when it comes to planning things without me. Then I silenced my phone, started my car, and drove directly to the airport for my flight to Santorini, feeling lighter with each mile that separated me from the family that had taken me for granted for the very last time. The aftermath unfolded largely while I was in Santorini, where I spent a peaceful, sun-drenched week reconnecting with myself, a profound sense of calm washing over me. I walked along ancient paths, swam in the Aegean Sea, and spent hours journaling, considering what I wanted my life to look like going forward, free from the shadow of others' expectations. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb mode, checking it only once a day to ensure there were no true emergencies and to monitor the security cameras at the house. What I saw through those cameras and in the accumulated messages painted a vivid picture of chaos and desperation. According to cousin Sophie, who sent me private messages that seemed genuinely remorseful, the scene at the resort had been apocalyptic. With no reservation and virtually no available accommodations during the holiday, the family had been forced to split up, scattered and disoriented. Some, including my parents, drove hours to the nearest larger town to find hotel rooms at exorbitant last-minute rates, emptying their wallets in frustration. Others, like Uncle George and Aunt Helen, crammed into the one small, cramped cabin that Uncle George managed to secure through a desperate business connection. The festive holiday dinner they'd been looking forward to, meticulously planned by me, was replaced by cold takeout pizza eaten in cramped quarters, the celebratory mood utterly shattered. The group chat I could now see exploded with blame, recriminations, and bitter arguments. Beatrice and Leo initially tried to maintain that I had misunderstood their intentions, clinging to the misunderstanding narrative. But as the intense discomfort and financial reality set in, the truth emerged, ugly and undeniable. Fine, we plan to leave without her, Beatrice finally admitted in the chat. But she's always so controlling about these trips, always making everything about her feelings. We just wanted one holiday without walking on eggshells around her. My mother surprisingly defended me, a faint glimmer of guilt shining through her words. But she paid for everything, Beatrice. She's been paying for these trips for years, and we've barely reimbursed her. What did you expect her to do when she found out? Not ruin Christmas for everyone. Beatrice shot back, still defiant. I think we ruined it first, Leo wrote, showing an unexpected flash of insight. For her, at least. The family tried calling me hundreds of times over those days, their names flashing across my screen. I didn't answer. Their messages evolved from angry to pleading to desperate bargaining. They cut their trip short, heading home after just 2 miserable days of holiday chaos, unable to bear the discomfort and financial drain any longer. On December 27th, my security cameras showed them arriving back at the house, luggage and all, only to discover they couldn't get in. I watched, a detached observer, as my father tried his key repeatedly, his face red with frustration, as my mother peered through windows, her expression one of utter disbelief, as Beatrice paced the front lawn making animated, furious phone calls. Eventually, someone, likely Leo, thought to check the garage, finding my note and the new keys. I observed them reading my letter together, their faces falling, expressions of shock and dawning comprehension as they absorbed the detailed account of how they had treated me over the years, culminating in the holiday abandonment. I'd made it clear in the letter. This was my house, left to me by my grandmother. I'd allowed them to live there rent-free, while I covered the mortgage. That arrangement was now over. They could stay temporarily while making other living arrangements, but I would be charging market rate rent beginning February 1st. When I finally returned from Santorini on January 3rd, refreshed and resolute, my spirit invigorated by solitude and self-reflection, I was prepared for the confrontation that awaited me. I pulled into the driveway, noticing all their cars were present. They'd known I was coming home today. The rent conditions I'd outlined required us to meet. They were waiting in the living room, a tableau of familiar faces wearing unfamiliar expressions, uncertainty, anxiety, even a hint of fear. Not emotions my family typically directed at me. Eleanor, my mother began, rising hesitantly from the couch, her voice strained. We need to talk about what you've done. No, I said calmly, remaining standing just inside the doorway, my posture firm. We need to talk about what you've all done. For years. This is ridiculous, Eleanor. Beatrice interjected, her voice sharp with indignation. So we left without you on a trip. It was immature, fine. But changing the locks? Threatening to evict your own family? Who does that? Someone who's finally had enough, I replied, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. Someone who's tired of being exploited and taken for granted. Someone who's setting boundaries that should have been set long ago. Exploited? My father scoffed, a hint of his usual bluster returning. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think, Eleanor? We're family. I pulled out my phone and played a recording I'd made before leaving, a carefully edited compilation of their messages planning to exclude me while still expecting me to foot the bill for their holiday vacation. Their faces changed, shifting from defiance to shock to shame, as they listened to their own voices discussing me as a problem to be managed, a resource to be used, rather than a family member to be respected. When the recording ended, the room was silent, the air thick with unspoken truths. Then, surprisingly, it was Oliver, Beatrice's usually reserved fiancé, who spoke first. I've been sitting here listening to all of you for days, trying to make sense of this, and honestly, I'm appalled. If this is how you treat family, if this is how you treat each other, I'm not sure I want to be part of it. Beatrice gaped at him, her mouth agape. You're taking her side, Oliver? There shouldn't be sides in a family, he replied, his voice firm. But if there are, then yes, I'm on the side of the person who is clearly wronged. Leo shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his gaze finally meeting mine. He's right. What we did was messed up. All of it, not just the trip. He looked at me directly, his eyes filled with a surprising sincerity.
I'm sorry, Eleanor.
Really sorry. One by one, hesitantly at first, they began to acknowledge what they'd done, though some more grudgingly than others. My mother cried silent tears, my father looked deeply ashamed, and Beatrice vacillated wildly between defensive and contrite, still trying to control the narrative. The conversation lasted hours, dredging up years of deeply ingrained family patterns and toxic dynamics, a painful but necessary catharsis. I remained calm but firm, making it unequivocally clear that things would be different going forward. I outlined my terms: fair rent payments for those continuing to live in the house, clear repayment plans for outstanding loans, and explicit expectations about mutual respect and consideration. And if we don't agree to these terms, Eleanor, my father asked, a hint of his usual authority returning to his voice, testing my resolve. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live by February 1st. I replied simply, my voice unwavering. This is non-negotiable. This is my home, and it will be a place of respect. In the days that followed, the family fractured and realigned in ways I hadn't anticipated, a painful but necessary metamorphosis. My parents, faced with the stark financial reality of paying market-rate rent on the house plus repaying what they owed me, decided to accelerate their long-discussed plans to downsize. They found a small, charming condo closer to my father's office and moved out by mid-January, a bittersweet departure. Beatrice and Oliver had a series of intense, difficult discussions that ultimately led to them postponing their wedding while they reassessed their relationship. Beatrice's behavior during the holiday incident had revealed aspects of her character that troubled Oliver deeply, challenging his perceptions of her. She moved in with a friend, and our relationship remained strained but civil, a fragile truce. Leo, to my genuine surprise, asked if he could continue living in the house while paying the designated rent. I want to make things right, Eleanor, he said, looking earnest. And I want to get to know my sister again, the real you. We established a genuine roommate relationship that slowly, tentatively, evolved into a real, supportive sibling bond, built on mutual respect rather than old patterns. Extended family members reached out individually in the weeks that followed. Some, like cousin Sophie, apologized sincerely, acknowledging their role in the family dynamics that had marginalized me. Others remained distant, uncomfortable with the disruption to the status quo, preferring the illusion of harmony. Aunt Helen, who had once baked with me, never spoke to me again. Uncle George sent a heartfelt letter of apology and a substantial check covering what he estimated he'd cost me over the years, a surprising gesture of true remorse. Cousin Sophie and I began meeting for coffee regularly, rebuilding our relationship on more equal footing, sharing vulnerabilities. My parents struggled to adjust to the new reality, but made genuine efforts, small gestures that meant more than grand pronouncements. My mother called weekly, careful to ask about my life and interests rather than just talking about herself. My father sent awkward but sincere text messages checking in on me, small steps, but meaningful ones on a long road to repair. The most surprising outcome was with Beatrice. After 3 months of minimal contact, she asked to meet over dinner at a neutral restaurant. She admitted that the incident and Oliver's strong reaction had forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself. "I was jealous of you, Eleanor," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, a rare moment of vulnerability. "You've always been the capable one, the one with everything together, even though you never boasted about it. I felt like I had to compete, to prove I was better somehow, more worthy of attention. It was easier to push you away and dismiss you than to admit I admired you." I didn't know if I believed her entirely, years of ingrained patterns not easily forgotten, but I appreciated the effort, the willingness to be honest. "We have a lot of history to work through, Beatrice," I told her gently. "It won't happen overnight, and it won't be easy." "I know," she nodded, her eyes earnest, "but I'd like to try if you're willing." Family therapy became part of our journey forward, an acknowledgement that deep-seated issues needed professional guidance. Not everyone participated consistently, some refusing to engage, but those who did began to understand the toxic patterns we'd all been caught in for so long, the roles we played, the unspoken rules. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries firmly but fairly. No more loans without clear repayment terms. No more taking on family expenses without acknowledgement and immediate reimbursement. No more silencing myself to keep the peace. It wasn't always easy. There were setbacks and arguments, moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, when I felt the pull to revert to my old self. But I remained committed to the new dynamics I'd established, and slowly, painstakingly, a different kind of family relationship began to emerge from the ashes of the old one, a healthier, more authentic version. 6 months after the holiday incident, I sat in Dr. Anya Sharma's office for what would be one of our final regular sessions. I'd been working intensively on my recovery from family trauma, building a stronger sense of self-worth and establishing healthier relationships in all aspects of my life. "How do you feel about your progress, Eleanor?" she asked, her gaze warm and encouraging. I considered the question carefully, looking back at the past half-year. "Lighter," I finally said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Like I've put down a burden I didn't even realize I was carrying. I still have moments of doubt and guilt when the old programming kicks in, but they're less frequent now, and I'm getting better at recognizing when I'm falling into old patterns and how to redirect myself." The journey hadn't been easy. After setting those initial, difficult boundaries, I'd gone through periods of intense grief for the family relationship I'd always wanted but never truly had. There were days I questioned my decisions, wondered if I'd overreacted, felt guilty for causing pain to people I loved, despite everything they'd done. But therapy helped me recognize those thoughts as conditioned responses from years of emotional manipulation. Dr. Anya Sharma guided me through techniques to acknowledge those feelings without letting them dictate my actions or pull me back into unhealthy dynamics. "And your support network?" she prompted. "Growing stronger every day," I replied with a smile. "My friends have been amazing, especially once I started being honest about my family situation instead of making excuses for them. I've reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with, and I've made new connections through that photography class I started taking. It's been incredibly creatively fulfilling." Building a non-family support network had been crucial to my healing, a vital lifeline. For too long, I'd prioritized family relationships at the expense of friendships and personal interests. Now I had a weekly book club, a photography group that went on monthly excursions to scenic spots, and several close friends who checked in regularly, offering genuine support and celebrating my successes. During those 6 months, I maintained limited contact with my family, individual connections rather than forced group gatherings, clear boundaries about what I would and wouldn't discuss, firm expectations about how I deserved to be treated. And the house. Dr. Anya Sharma asked. Still mine, I said with a confident smile that would have been impossible a year earlier. Leo's still renting one of the rooms, and I've rented another to a graduate student. The rental income covers the mortgage, and I'm saving to renovate the kitchen this fall, finally designing it exactly how I want it. I'd reclaimed my space, physically and emotionally. The house that had once felt like a site of obligation, a place I was tied to by duty, now felt like a true home, a sanctuary of my own making. I'd redecorated, choosing colors and styles that reflected my personality and taste rather than preserving the bland, family aesthetic I'd always accepted without question. My solo traveling had continued as well. After Santorini, I'd taken weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to visit but had put off. Emerald City for the architecture, Crescent City for the vibrant music scene, Rose City for the incredible food scene. Small adventures that built my confidence and expanded my world, proving my self-sufficiency. And what about reconciliation? Dr. Anya Sharma asked. Where do you stand on that, Eleanor? I've been thinking about this question for months. I'm open to it, but on my terms. With some family members, there's been real, tangible progress. Leo and I have a better relationship now than we ever did growing up, a genuine friendship. My parents are trying, in their own way, slowly learning new ways to connect. Others, like Beatrice, it's more complicated, a work in progress. And with some, like Aunt Helen, I've accepted that reconciliation may never happen, and that's okay too. That sounds like a healthy, realistic approach, Eleanor. Dr. Anya Sharma nodded. Reconciliation doesn't mean returning to old patterns. It means creating new, healthier relationships where possible and accepting when it's not, for your own peace of mind. As summer turned to fall, a crispness in the air, I decided it was time to test the waters of a family gathering, a tentative step forward. I invited select family members to a small dinner party at my house. Not everyone, just those who had shown genuine remorse and made real efforts to change. My parents, Leo, cousin Sophie and her husband Felix, Uncle George, and after some deliberation, Beatrice. I set clear expectations in the invitation. This was a fresh start, an opportunity to build something new. Past grievances wouldn't be discussed at the dinner table. No rehashing of old wounds. Anyone uncomfortable with these terms was welcome to decline without judgment. To my surprise and cautious delight, everyone accepted, a glimmer of hope for a different future. The dinner wasn't perfect by any means. There were awkward moments, silences that stretched a little too long, old tensions that bubbled up briefly before being consciously redirected. But there were also genuine conversations, authentic interest in each other's lives, and moments of connection that felt new and promising, untainted by the past. My mother brought a photo album I'd never seen before, filled with pictures of me growing up, meticulously organized. I realized we don't celebrate you enough, Eleanor, she said quietly as we looked through it together, her voice filled with a rare tenderness. I want to do better, truly. My father helped me grill in the backyard, asking about my work with an interest that seemed sincere rather than perfunctory, genuinely curious about my career. Leo proudly showed off the kitchen shelves he'd installed, his way of contributing to the home we now shared, a testament to our new dynamic. Beatrice brought a peace offering, a framed photo of us as children, arms around each other, smiling without complexity or competition. I found this while packing, she said, her voice soft. I'd forgotten we used to be friends. After dinner, as we sat in the living room with coffee and dessert, the fire crackling gently in the fireplace, my father raised his cup in a toast. To Eleanor, he said, his voice husky with emotion, for having the courage to demand better from all of us. We didn't deserve a second chance, but we're grateful for it, and for the chance to be a real family again. The acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes, not from lingering pain, but from the profound recognition that true healing was possible, even if the relationship would never be what I'd once hoped for. It could be something healthier. That holiday, a year after the betrayal, was different from any other in my memory. Smaller, more intimate, held at a neutral location rather than the fraught family home. Everyone contributed equally to the expenses and preparations, a new habit of reciprocity. There were no dramatic exclusions, no manipulation, no taking anyone for granted. We exchanged thoughtful, personal gifts rather than expensive displays of status. We shared memories, both difficult and fond, with new honesty and vulnerability. We acknowledged the journey we'd been on and the work still to be done, the ongoing commitment to change. Not everyone from the original group was there. Some relationships had proven too damaged to repair, at least for now. Aunt Helen sent a card but politely declined the invitation. Some cousins chose to celebrate elsewhere. But those who came seemed genuinely committed to creating something healthier than what had existed before, a true community. As I drove home that evening, the stars shining bright against the clear winter sky, I reflected on the remarkable journey from last holiday to this one, from the devastating discovery of intentional exclusion to the careful, brave reconstruction of relationships worth saving, from being the family doormat to a woman with boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to demand better. The deepest lesson I'd learned wasn't about family dynamics or even about standing up for myself, though those were profoundly important. It was about the difference between love that diminishes and love that enhances, between relationships that drain your spirit and those that fill it, between accepting scraps of affection and requiring genuine respect. Sometimes love requires distance. Sometimes healing means letting go. Sometimes the family you need isn't the one you were born into, but the one you build around you, person by person, connection by connection, choosing those who choose you back. I don't regret what I did that holiday morning when I canceled the reservation and changed the locks. It was the most difficult decision I'd ever made, a moment of profound courage, but also the most necessary. It wasn't about revenge, but about finally valuing myself enough to require better treatment, to reclaim my own life. Some might call it extreme. I call it the first day of a new life, a life where I matter, where my feelings count, where my contributions are seen, where love is demonstrated through consistent, respectful actions, not just claimed in empty words. If you're watching this and recognize yourself in my story, please know you're not alone. Family relationships are complex, messy, and often challenging, but they should never, ever come at the cost of your self-worth. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for your well-being. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what hurts you, especially when it's family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? What was your turning point? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more authentic conversations about family dynamics and personal growth. Your support helps this channel reach others who might need to hear they're not alone. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be valued, respected, and truly seen.